Set in Italy's green heartland, Città di Castello is the birthplace of ancient civilizations and a treasure chest of handmade artworks. Located in Umbria, on the left bank of the river Tiber, it stands on the site of the ancient town of Tiferno, originally founded by the Umbrians and eventually ruled by the Romans. Visitors are charmed by the sight of the red roofs and ancient walls of a town that is steeped in history, proud of its traditions while at the same time open to the future. Città di Castello boasts numerous historical buildings and churches containing works by some of the most important artists of the Italian Renaissance, such as Raphael, Luca Signorelli, as well as ceramics by Andrea della Robbia. It is also home to one of the leading figures of contemporary art, Alberto Burri. Against this backdrop, a century-old tradition has continued to survive thanks to the Tela Umbra workshop. Tela Umbra is a small weaving business housed just a stone's throw away from the town's main square in a fine historical building, Palazzo Tomassini, previously known as Bourbon del Monte. Here, time truly seems to have stopped. The work is carried out exactly as it was at the start of the last century, with the same kind of looms and the same techniques. The sound of the wooden pulleys and the rhythmic clacking of the reeds still set the pace of the difficult and laborious work carried out by skilled weavers. These women create one-of-a-kind rare works of extraordinary quality. Weaving is a complex technical process that starts with the preparation of the warp before the actual weaving can take place. Weaving is a craft that goes far back in time. The oldest Umbrian fabrics date back to the period between the 11th and 12th centuries and take the form of table linens made in the traditional two-coloured Perugian style with indigo decorations. The weaver's craft is deeply rooted in Città di Castello and the surrounding area. In farming communities, each household typically had its own loom, which was used to meet the family's basic needs. The whole area was marked by widespread poverty and hunger in the early years of the 20th century. Farming communities lived in poor conditions, and there were very few schools or institutions to help these people improve their lot. The turning point came with the arrival of Baron Leopoldo Franchetti and his young American wife, Alice Hallgarten. They were a very close couple, despite an age difference of 27 years, and their differences in terms of character and temperament were crucial to the success of their projects. They were married in 1900 in Città di Castello, where they lived in the sumptuous Villa della Montesca. The villa was designed in the Florentine style by architect Broccini and decorated with splendid frescoes by the painters Panti, Marini and Bellanti. The villa is surrounded by a marvellous park and overlooks the town and the valley of the river Tiber. Alice was an energetic, forward-looking woman with a deep humanitarian spirit. She immediately took an interest in the backward conditions of the poor families living and working on her husband's estate. The young Baroness focused her efforts on providing education and work training opportunities. In 1902, two schools specifically for farmers' children, the Montesca and the Rovigliano, were opened. Classes were conducted in accordance with the Montessori method, a wholly child-centered approach. The desks, the teaching materials, and the wooden objects made by the children were all conceived in accordance with this revolutionary method of teaching. Much of this furniture and equipment can be seen today in the museum set up inside the palazzo. The schools were part of a broader project started by Baron Franchetti and his wife. Alice and Leopoldo believed in a new kind of society. Their aim was to transform the lowly farm workers into educated rural dwellers and to give them a few more rights. The founding of the Tela Umbra workshop formed part of this overall project. Alice Franchetti was able to help the poor women of Città di Castello save themselves from a bleak fate. She set up a large weaving workshop equipped with wooden hand looms, which still survive today. Even in 1908, she was aware of the threat that new power looms posed to traditional weaving techniques. Alice was the first to defend the handmade product from the mass-produced machine-made one. The teachings are still applied today in the work carried out by the workshop's weavers, who skillfully and willingly copy the models of traditional fabrics and cloths. Pure linen threads from Flanders, Holland and Ireland are used. They are fine and delicate, two characteristics that make it possible to deem the fabrics true artworks due to the skill and patience required. It all begins in the warp room, the room where the warp is prepared before being placed on the loom. A wooden frame made up of small beams that intersect one another is wrapped in 80 meters of linen thread. After a week's work, the warp is ready to be mounted on the loom and set up in such a way as to begin the actual weaving process. Every thread must be inserted into a heddle so that it can be intertwined with the weft. The shuttle swiftly slides from left to right and finally creates the cloth. The weaver's feet are like those of an expert organist playing an elaborate piece of. The sounds that fill the air during working hours take us back in time. Indeed, time seems to have come to a standstill. When the warp breaks, the famous weaver's knot is still used, as this reef knot disappears during the weaving process and blends into the fabric. A special feature of the Tela Umbra workshop is a very old technique called spolinato, which is used to produce the finest type of linen that exists, bissus. Only truly skilled and expert hands are able to thread a coloured thread between the very thin warps and thus create the famous rosellina, a decoration used to embellish table linen. This century-old handcraft tradition is able to produce an average of 20 centimeters of cloth a day. Rare and unique fabric that stands out for its beauty and quality. During the last century, the Tela Umbra workshop received numerous recognitions and certifications at international level, recognizing the high quality of its products. In order to celebrate the workshop's historical productions, in 1998 a museum was opened so as to enable more people to appreciate Città di Castello's artistic heritage. Wandering through the museum's large rooms, visitors can also admire collections of antique tablecloths dating back to the Renaissance. The cloth has white and indigo stripes decorated with typical medieval motifs, such as deer, griffins, lions and trees. These materials are used for decorative and religious purposes as altar cloths and throne coverings. They are also depicted in many paintings, including some by Giotto, Simone Martini, Leonardo da Vinci, and others. The other showcases display samples of cloths produced by Tela Umbra, where materials such as wool and hemp are used. There are also samples of materials used to make tapestries, curtains, blankets and carpets. Some items of special interest are embroidered fabrics made using the sorbello stitch, named after the Marquise Sorbello, a friend of Baroness Alice's. The museum also displays some objects from Alice Franchetti's personal wardrobe, such as her nightgown, along with some of her husband's personal items. Alice and Leopoldo shared a spiritual bond that helped them to overcome their natural divergences. It was a strength that united them and allowed them to overcome any differences, the overwhelming desire to help their fellow humans. They remained childless, but left all of their wealth and property to the farm workers on their estate and to a charitable institution, the Opera Pia Regina Margherita, in Rome. Città di Castello pays homage to these two great innovators by keeping alive the historical traditions. The fine cloth made in the workshop can be purchased at the showroom in Città di Castello, which is open on weekdays. The various types of fabric can be produced on request, also to the customer's design. Tela Umbra is a constant presence that favours a quieter vision of the world, one that stands in contrast to the hectic pace of most people's lives. The weavers are a living testimony of an art form that continues to stand the test of time, and which encourages us to foster a taste for the unique and the precious.